Hello and welcome everybody to New Earth Consciousness. Thank you for being here. I have Genea Barnes with me, and I am so excited for this conversation. Genea and I had, when we met, I felt like my brain was just like firing off like everything that she said. I was like, yes, yes, yes. Oh my God, yes. Like it just resonated so deeply and so powerfully. So I just want to let the audience know that Genea has a really powerful message, and you really want to tune into this if you want to get some powerful medicine for yourself. So, Genea, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited. Any opportunity I get to go deep
Yeah.
is welcome because not everybody's willing to go there.
Yeah, go deep or go home. So anyway, and by the way, just so the audience knows, you can find Genea on all the social media platforms. Just look her up, Genea Barnes, as spelled here. So when you and I connected, you went straight to the be the wolf metaphor. So I'm just gonna lay it open there. I want you to describe that to the audience because it was so powerful, that metaphor that you shared with me. So,
So my company is called Be the Wolf, and the reason it is called Be the Wolf is because of the Yellowstone National Park wolves. And there was something about that story that resonated so deeply to my soul, to my heart, that it literally became the center stone of my business. And it was the work I've always been doing. And it, sometimes there's just something is a part of you. And that's kind of what this story is for me. So, in the early 1900s, they eradicated all the predators from Yellowstone National Park, and they did this to make the park safe. And what ended up happening was that over time, the ecosystem of Yellowstone National Park began to collapse. The elk overpopulated, they ate the vegetation by the rivers spread out, the beavers and other species left. And in the mid 1990s, they did an experiment. They introduced 41 wolves back into the environment. And the wolves did nothing but be exactly who they were born to be. They didn't try to be a beaver, they didn't try to be a woodpecker, they weren't trying to be something other than what they are. They were operating from the true essence and the truth of who they are. And in that, something miraculous began to happen. The whole ecosystem ended up recalibrating over time. The elk population balanced out. They moved up to higher ground in the park, and the rivers, the vegetation re regrew. The vegetation regrew, the rivers
reestablished.
right. The rivers rerouted, the beavers returned, other species returned. I mean, even vegetation like aspen trees had been completely wiped out, started to come back eventually. And so there's two really important pieces to this metaphor is that, we as humans, we're trying so hard to be something and trying to be what we should be and trying to be successful, be this, be that, whatever it is that we were told or we believed would keep us safe. We've been trying to be that instead of having the freedom and the permission to just be who we truly are and operate from the essence of who we are, because each one of us is unique and each one of us has unique gifts to bring to the world, just like the wolf had unique gifts to bring to the ecosystem of Yellowstone. And without those gifts, everything collapsed. And so there's this place where I believe that the more people we have operating from the true essence of who we are, that our own overall worldly system will recalibrate, will harmonize. I don't want to say necessarily balance because everything's working in balance, but there's this harmony that's greater thin balance that I think we all strive for without even knowing it. And the other piece that's so important, I think, is the fact that they eradicated the wolves to make the park safe. And how often are we stuffing down and pretending parts of us don't exist and trying to get rid of and trying to like become so successful and powerful and this certain version of ourselves and push down those pieces of who we truly are in order to stay safe. And in that, what happens over time, and I've seen it so many times because this is the work I do, I unwind this
Mm.
in people's subconscious and in their nervous system. I undo a lot of trauma and help resolve that internal conflict. And what ends up happening is it creates internal conflict. And so, with the internal conflict, much like the wolves in Yellowstone National Park being gone, there was conflict in the park
Mhm.
and the ecosystem collapsed. So, internally, our own ecosystems collapse. We end up with um, a lot of stress, or we end up with mental illness, or we end up with physical illness. And so I think there's something to be said about reclaiming all aspects of who we are so that we're free to be and stop operating in fear.
Yeah. I have to say, so this is the second time I've listened to your be the wolf metaphor, and just like the first time, my body is literally responding. Like
Mm.
the energy is just like, whoosh, like I'm just getting those good, blissful feelings. That's kind of my indicator when I know I'm listening to something that is powerful, and has truth to it. Um, yeah, isn't it interesting that we as human beings have somehow, for whatever reason in our evolution, have decided to make ourselves separate
Mm.
and from nature, right? Like that somehow we are not one with it. We're this idea of God is something outside of us. This state of separation is just so has I think has been the root of all of our problems. Um, and so this idea that you're proposing, I think it's really powerful because we don't even know what's possible
Yeah.
or how that when one person undoes whatever the programming is, whatever the trauma is, and you get to feel who you really like, who God made you to be, source, whatever word you want to use for it.
Right.
Um, when everybody does that, what happens to our reality here on Earth? What happens to how we are on the planet? Like how do systems change? And we're only, I feel like, just starting to scratch the surface, right?
Yeah. I think one of the things that you said that was interesting is, that we're all one. And I think those of us who have been in spiritual communities for a long time, we've experienced this feelings of oneness.
Mm.
But I think one of the pieces that's missing is there's also this separateness. It's this like that it's not just we're all one, because I think a lot of times what gets misconstrued is that we are all the one thing. And yes, that is true, but we are the one thing from each individual perspective. And so there's a uniqueness to each one of us, just like there's a uniqueness to the wolf and to the beaver.
Mm.
And so, yes, we are all part of the one thing, but we also have this separateness of this separate perspective and separate gifts that we bring to the world. Like my gifts, we may have similar gifts, but they're not going to be exactly the same because the lens from which we look through everything is different. And part of, I think, at least in this realm, is that it's that uniqueness that creates the ebb and flow and the harmony of everything.
Beautiful. That's well said.
Thank you.
Yes, well said. Yeah. I'm glad that you caught that. Because it is very easy to kind of just sort of escape into this idea of oneness, right? And it's all good or I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
But that who your unique frequency actually does matter. Like it actually
Mhm.
matters. Like you are a necessary part in this play that we're in, right?
Yeah.
And and uh, and when you snuff that out in the various ways that we can snuff ourselves out, um, there something is lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think, it's so funny because I spent my life trying to stay safe. I experienced, I mean, my first big trauma, I was 4 years old. I held the hand of my junkie best friend while he died of an overdose. And so I grew up in obviously an unsafe situation in an unsafe home. But because every move that I made was about getting safety or love, there was no room for me, for the actual me.
Mm,
And in that process, like there's so much I think I robbed the people I was around of being able to experience and connect truly to me. I think that's one of the big things when you're running in survival mode and safety mode or feeling unworthy and needing to belong and all of those things and the actions that come from that. It just it inhibits connection, which I think is such a big desire for most people. And but when you're not showing up and everything is about trying to prevent and stay safe or trying to get something that you think will fill you up, we lose out on being able to have these kind of conversations, being able to actually, like, I can feel your heart, I can feel this connection, but I couldn't feel that most of my life because I was spending so much time trying to stay safe or get somebody to love me by trying to be what I thought they wanted me to be or take responsibility for how they were experiencing the world.
hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And so what I want to what do I want to what I want to talk about next is this topic of trauma that you brought up. So we all have trauma. I mean, I don't, well, there's very, very few people, maybe one or two people that I know in my
Love.
life who really never had to deal with any really big, significant trauma. I feel like those numbers are actually really low. Most people that I've met in my life have had some pretty big traumas, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and I know that for myself, I spent a lot of my life feeling like, oh, I've had so much trauma that I'm just broken. You know,
Mhm.
this idea that, oh, I'm just broken and I'm never gonna be whatever it was, be successful or be impactful or be or have the things that I want. Like I'm just, I've got this trauma.
Yeah. My just a little side note, my second business was called Broken.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. And so people, I do believe that there is a gift in trauma, and I know
Mhm.
you do too. So, and I think for some people, like I know when I went through my own crisis where my body broke down, like I was carrying so much trauma and working really hard to not feel my feelings that eventually I had a full-on like nervous breakdown, health went haywire, all of it, like bad. And I remember um, you know, my brother saying to me something like, well, you got what you asked for, because what I was praying for, what I was really wanting was to find this connection with God, to find enlightenment, to, like, you know what I mean? Get out of
Yeah.
my pain and my suffering. He says, "Well, you got what you asked for." And I was like, "What are you talking about? I didn't ask for this." And it wasn't until after I got through it that I realized, I was like, "Oh, wow. There's so much to it." Just that concept of people who go through trauma and get to the other side, what the actual gift is. So, yeah, if you could talk about that.
Yeah, I think there's layers. And I think, especially people who had a lot of trauma, it feels like sometimes that it's never ending. Like, oh, I've been working on this stuff forever. And
Yep.
people say that there's this gift, but where is it? And what, one of the things, one of the gifts that I've found in trauma is that, when you're very small, you have a very limited capacity of how much you can hold. And when you experience very big things when you're small, and I may just clarify what trauma actually is. Trauma is anytime your nervous system is overwhelmed that you cannot process or do not process the emotional content. And we develop these habits of skipping over the emotional content to other things, just to avoid that. And then it becomes a habit. And so we never actually can access those deeper unprocessed emotions. But in that, there's this thing that happens that as an adult, for you, that level of overwhelm and being able to stand in the face of that level of overwhelm, you have to go through something really massive that, like, no adult really in our modern world really ever has to go through.
Hmm.
So there's this level of, as an adult, if you didn't have much trauma growing up, if for you to have this level of overwhelmed that once you heal from it can stretch your capacity so wide, like it would have to be like Holocaust type of thing.
Right. Yeah.
And
Hmm.
hopefully we're in a world where that thing is happening a lot less. We know it's still happening in some levels, some places. Um, but as a kid, that level of overwhelm and the fear associated with facing those unprocessed emotions, when you get to a point when you can stand and allow those emotions to be there and stand in the face of them and process through them, your capacity of what you can hold and what you can carry is massive. So, we see people who do these amazing things, like I'm gonna hike base camp at Everest. So it's one of the things I'm doing to stretch my capacity. And although I am looking outside of me to do something to stretch my capacity, this is kind of the way most people have to do it.
Hmm.
But I also have way less, but there's still some untapped, unhealed stuff within me. And every time I'm able to access some of those deeper, unprocessed emotions, all I have to do is go inside, do the work, process, clear, and it increases my capacity. It increases my capacity to hold joy. It increases my capacity to hold love. It increases my capacity to hold peace. And it increases my capacity to be able to hold, like, my clients and other people who've been through massive stuff. I can hold space in a way that a lot of people can't. And so that's one aspect of the gift. And then the other aspect is that when you have been through so many things and you've gotten to the point where you're not only on the other side, but you see the positive thing in it, that when not so good things happen, your habit becomes to see the positive in it, which gives you access to a totally different frequency of possibility.
Yeah.
So when you're in a negative emotional state, the access you have is of that frequency. And ironically, we run to try and stay safe from that frequency to something that has that same frequency. So if I'm feeling lonely, I would run towards and be attracted to and see and magnetic with somebody else who feels lonely. And so then there's two people like pushing and pulling to fill that loneliness. But when you've gotten to that place where you've healed from the trauma and you can see the gift in it and you can move quickly from that pain into a higher frequency, it's like I'm not, oh, I feel lonely, oh, that's not a good, oh, what's this teaching me, oh, okay. And then you're all of a sudden you're in peace. And then what I might do to deal with whatever problem created the loneliness, I'm coming from a level of peace. So I'm going to attract and be aware of opportunities that are of the frequency of peace, which actually solves the problem.
Hmm. Yeah. What do you think, what do you feel in your experience is really the most, powerful way to deal with trapped trauma? Like, what is because, does it have to be something that's coming up in the moment? Like, yeah, what are your processes and what are some of the results maybe that you've seen in people? Like, how quickly can people shift?
I mean, people can shift instantly if they're willing to look at the truth. I
Hmm.
mean, that's the hardest part is like we have like so you have an overwhelming experience and that was traumatic. And I also need to say it's like trauma sometimes is the big things, but it's also a parent who suffered from anxiety or depression. So they were inconsistent, unpredictable, and that's going to make a kid feel unsafe. And so there's this space between the moment right before you feel the fear or something that's not right and what you do about it. And so, what we tend to do is we tend to have these patterns that we do to stay safe, people
Hmm.
please,
Hmm.
hide, dissociate, all of those things. And if you can catch the moment between the instance that triggers it and you doing the thing and slow time down, you can actually access the processed emotions. So the people pleasing, the hiding, the fighting, all of those things we're doing to actually avoid the emotion. And so then it becomes this pattern. Anytime that situation comes up, we just do the thing. We just do the thing. We just do the thing. And have you ever been watching a movie and had to rewind it?
Mm. Well, I've had to do that with books. I know that for
Yeah,
sure.
it happens
You
with
know,
books too. Like,
you
and you
know,
catch
like I'm
yourself.
like I've read 10 pages. I have no idea what I just read because I was off somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, or like, so like with a movie,
Hmm.
you miss a point, you know it's a pertinent piece of
Oh,
information,
yeah.
so you
Sure.
rewind it.
Yeah.
And then you watch it, and then you're like, I missed it again. So you rewind it again, and you do that two or three times. With the book, you catch yourself reading the same paragraph over and over and over. And there's some truth in there that you're not wanting to look at. So, like in a movie, it might be there's a villain, like the villain is actually a good guy, or the good guy that you liked might actually be the villain. So, some little nugget,
Mm.
or it could be some truth about your own life, some perspective.
Hmm.
And so, what we're doing constantly is we're jumping from a circumstance like that point in the movie. So, we're just skipping over. And it's like if you can catch your patterns
Yeah.
So if you catch your patterns and you rewind, 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 instant by instance, and just stop time, and there's going to be some emotional content to process there.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's just, and if it's big stuff, it might take a long time,
Right.
but because you're going to have to sit through freeze, and your system's going to be like, it's not okay to process this emotion. You can't do it, because if you could do it, you would have done it before the first time it happened. And your subconscious is like, she can't handle it. It's dangerous.
Yeah, totally. It's so,
And yeah,
yeah, yeah. So here's this thing I want to ask you. So, because I've noticed in myself, like I know my patterns. Like
yeah,
I'm a chronic people pleaser. I know that about myself, you know. And so
yeah,
whenever I come up, when a situation comes up that triggers something, a
yeah,
trauma, let's say like, oh, I'm feeling like this person's trying to have power over me and it's all of my hackles are going up, right?
yeah,
And like, okay, breathe. Like I could, my people pleaser would be like, okay, just don't create conflict and just agree with whatever they're saying, right?
right,
But I feel like, yeah, that slowing down and like, okay, really just take a moment to really chew on this for a while because I feel like there's like, okay, yeah, it might be true. It could be true that this person's trying to manipulate me or have power over me, or
right,
maybe I'm just projecting my own
right.
crap onto this person, right? And so how you choose to respond in that moment, I feel like a lot of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, you know that quote where it's like, when you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at change,
Yeah.
right?
And that's true. And I think in the moment of feeling triggered, so to speak, into one of your patterns might not be always the best place because there's not necessarily enough time to process what needs to be processed to break free from it. So, in that circumstance, so you could just say that I have this memory of this time when this
Mm-hmm.
person said this thing. I mean, and it could just be they had a beard, and the person that
Right.
that triggered it initially was a bearded person. So you're going to just think that they're all people with beards are manipulative. Like people say, like, oh, I don't like guys with beards or stuff like this. So a lot of times it's because they have some negative association. But so you can have that moment and you can go back in time. Okay, here's where I started people pleasing. Here's like go back, go back. Here's where I started thinking they were manipulating me. But
Mm.
it's before that because the moment that you need to get to is a little bit before that because you've already tried to divert the emotion that needs to be processed
Ah,
by saying, oh, this person's manipulative or they're trying to screw me over. So you're already trying to get away from that initial content. And most of this stuff happened before the age of 7. So you don't people before the kids before the age of 7 don't have language for those feelings. And so for a lot of it, it'll feel like a sludgy thing. Or you might have to sit through 20 minutes of freeze before you even access the sensation, or
mm,
maybe even 45 minutes. I recently did process some stuff where I had to sit through an hour and a half of freeze and I know what I'm doing
yeah,
before I actually accessed and the sensation, the emotion that was underneath actually started to move.
yeah,
But it's just accessing and allowing,
yeah,
access and allow, because you've spent your whole life jumping to, oh, they're trying to manipulate me. Oh, I will people please. And so you've skipped over that thing, just like we skip over in the movie all the time.
right. Interesting. Right. So what you're saying really at the core, it's like you really do need to like feel the feelings.
Yeah,
And
that
they're hard
yeah,
to access, right? I mean, that's the thing. It's like we're so that's the difficult. I mean, it's so trite to say, "Oh, just feel your feelings." Well, those feelings can really, you're whatever, your brain is like constantly tucking them away and like making sure that you don't have to feel it, and it's so quick,
Exactly.
right?
Well, and it's so quick. It's like I used to show, like, hold up a Nike symbol for people, and they'd look at, I'm like, do you know what that is? And they would know before, they wouldn't even have the words in their brain, but they would know what it is because your subconscious mind is that quick. And, but the thing that you said about feeling the feelings, and this is where it gets all wonky
Mm,
because, in my journey, I've done all the things. I've done the 10 years of therapy. I've done the trauma healings. I've done the ayahuasca ceremonies. I've done the this and that and the workshops and the
mm,
transformational things and firewalking and like I've done all the things. And in that process, I learned that half of the emotions people are feeling are just things trying to detour them out of actually getting to the unprocessed emotion. So, like that moment of you saying, oh, they're trying to manipulate me,
mm-hmm,
right? And then this fear comes up.
mm-hmm,
So then you move into people pleasing.
mm-hmm.
But the fear isn't the emotion that needs to be processed. The emotion that needs to be processed is the thing that's happening right before you say the story, they're trying to manipulate me. And so a lot of grief and crying and things like that might actually just be from a story. Somebody's like, this unprocessed stuff, it's you're getting close to it and it's going to be tapped, and your subconscious mind is like, oh, we got to get her away from here. Let's make her feel like she's not enough. Let's tell her the story she's not enough. And then you start to feel shame. And then so you like that with that story of not enough, then you feel the shame or the sadness. And so now you're dealing with these emotions and trying to process these emotions instead of the ones that actually need to be processed. And so it's this, I mean, I spent my life like pulling back the emotions and in the work that I do, pulling back the emotions. And it's like, why have I processed all this stuff? And why am I still doing the same things?
Mm,
And it wasn't until I found that in between space where I could get to the actual repressed emotions. And when we're talking about trauma and overwhelm, it's repressed stuff. It's not the stuff that, like, oh, I stubbed my toe and I'm mad in this moment. Or
mm-hmm,
my cat passed away and I'm sad. A lot of times an instance like that will bring up repressed stuff to be processed. So if you're a person who has a lot of these things happening over and over and over, there's this opportunity to process the repressed stuff, but most of us are just detouring around in the same patterns over and over, so we keep
right.
recreating it.
Right. And so you're saying like the repressed emotions, like we don't even have a clue what they are,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah. And then most of them, like when I'm in session with a client and we're moving through that stuff, like they can't name it. It's just a sensation in the body.
Interesting. Yeah.
And so it's just an allowing, just allow it, just allow it, just allow it. But it was overwhelming at the time. So at the time that it got trapped. So the other thing that happens is you are forever trapped in that moment. So if you have these repressed emotions that haven't been processed, like subconsciously you're trapped in that moment. You're always on the lookout for the bearded guy or
Mm-hmm.
the person that's going to manipulate you, that might not even be manipulating you, but as soon as some of the triggers from that happen, they say the certain thing or they're the bearded guy, now you're looped back into that old moment and you can't deal with what's true and real. I literally became a lost hiker the beginning of the month, or yeah, the beginning of the month, hiking Haleakala, because I walked into a portal of being looped back into my past and not dealing with the present moment. And it was, create like we were lost for me and this other woman were lost for 27 hours.
Oh my
And
God.
I was triggered and looped into, she had an energy similar to my mom. And so I was looped into acting like the child. And it's so clear, like now, if I had just stopped and gotten myself fully present, we would have been out of that situation in 45 minutes, but it took 27 hours.
Oh wow.
And she was also looped into a thing. There was some divine orchestration for us to
Yeah,
like
right. Yeah.
burn through
Oh
some
yeah. So
stuff.
the divine orchestration, like that's the thing, right? It's like
Yep.
truly, I think that, life is not happening to us. And I know I keep saying these cliche things, but I think it's really true. It's like when you begin to realize like you are so loved that life is arranging itself around you all the time
Yeah.
for you to realize who you are, like
Yeah.
who you really are. Like that's how loved you are. And even though it looks like this sucks, why me, all the things, it's like, no, there is something out there that is loving you so hard and so deeply that it wants nothing but for you to be that magnificent, radiant light, unique frequency, you know, um,
Yeah.
expressing yourself in the world, like being the gift. And, it has such a, man, when, and I think too, going back to, the capacity builder, right? Having more capacity to hold. When we do this work, it's like, and I'm sure you've had these experiences too, when you just walk up to somebody that you're just like, holy crap. Like you don't even have to say the word, you just feel their presence and something is happening to you,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
that's the thing where I start to get really excited, like, well, what's possible? Like, if one person is lit up, and I really do think that there's this awakening that's happening, and it's
Yeah.
through each other. It's not done in isolation. That's the key thing I think we all need to realize. Like, because I was stuck in this loop of just like, well, I just need to meditate, so I'm just going to sit by myself and like do
Yeah.
this as much as I possibly can. And it's really like in my life experience, the most transformative experiences have been in the awake, like in person. Well, I mean, I've had interesting experiences, meditations, but the ones that were really like, wow, like mind blowing have been with people,
Yeah.
people or in nature or something where you're having this lived experience.
Absolutely. And a big piece of that is that it's an accelerator. Like one of the things that like we're gonna go the universe, God, whatever, is gonna give you a million opportunities to heal the thing. And it's gonna come up over and over and over. Like I was sexually assaulted as a kid and then raped as an adult, date raped. But the situation, and I could see it so clearly now, but at the time I was like, this, why is this happening to me? And
Hmm.
um, but it was the circumstance where this person did this a couple times over the course of the evening. And the first time I was frozen, just like I was when I was a kid. The second time I was able to say no. And the third time I was able to kick them off of me. So each time I processed a little bit more of those deep repressed emotions. And so it was actually this very healing thing.
Yeah.
And I was able to, from that point, I was able to own up some stuff, own my shame, take responsibility for my life in a different way. I was able to step up in a very empowered way that I was never able to do before, but I couldn't see it at the time. I was like, still in like, why did he do this to me? Blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
Um, so there's always going to be that opportunity when you talk about being so loved. That's a piece of it. There was something else I was going to say, but I don't remember what it was.
uh, yeah. Yeah, and I think that, that, well, it's like, when you talk about your experience of like, being frozen and then being able to say no and then actually fighting off, it's like, and the reason that was healing is because you finally got to that point of justice, right? Like, like, no, I'm not going to let this happen. Like you were able to speak up for yourself and stand up for
Yeah.
yourself, and that's where it's like, oh yeah, there's something that my husband shared with me, and he grew up with a lot of trauma as well, and he was adopted. His brother was adopted, the older brother. He calls him my mother's other son. He doesn't even call him a brother. Anyway, so in his teen years, this brother was about to kill him. He was on his
Mhm.
back, pounding on the back of his head right here. And my husband knew, he's like, if I don't do something right now, I'm gonna die. Like he just knew it. I'm gonna die. So something within him was able to throw him off, go out. He grabbed a gun. Nothing was in the gun, but he pointed the gun and he was like, get the out of here, right?
Yeah.
And he said, from that, he says, because I had to save myself, essentially, I had to fight for my life. He's like, nothing, I'm not afraid of people.
Yeah.
That was the gift. He realized that, once you face like the potential of losing your life and you get through that, right?
Yeah.
It's like everything else is small potatoes.
Well,
So I find it so interesting.
and such a big piece in that circumstance is probably him not fighting back was a survival strategy from childhood, and not fighting back to that level was a survival strategy from childhood, where we're at this position where we need the other person to take care of us because we're small and we're actually not capable. So my guess, I'm just making up a story here. My guess is that he was looped into a circumstance that was, scary from childhood, where he didn't feel like he had any power. But then and so he had his strategy of not fighting back to whatever level.
Hmm.
And then there's this point where it's like you're pushed to that edge so far that it's like you have to break the illusion of how what you chose as your reality as a kid. And so by him breaking the illusion that, hey, I'm not capable, I'm again making up a story,
Yeah.
that it broke it completely. And it's often, this is the thing why healing from trauma, especially childhood stuff, is so difficult, because it takes things that are that extreme
Hmm.
to break the illusion. Like that's what happened to me in Haleakala, is like that thing finally at the end, like we both snapped out of it, and like the spell was broken at the same time. And then they were like, oh, the Rangers have eyes on you, like literally moments later. And it was because all that extreme pushed us to break that illusionary reality that wasn't true, that was full of beliefs. For me, it's like I'm not allowed to outshine, my mom or anybody else. And so I could never solve the problem. I had to let them do it,
Yeah.
because that was the illusion of the perception I lived in.
Yeah. Interesting. So tell the audience, share with us, what are the ways that people can work with you? What do you have going on?
What do I have going on? So I lead firewalks. I have one coming up in January, and I lead firewalks and transformational events. I'm going to be starting in a couple of weeks, a weekly call. I believe it's going to be on Wednesdays. It'll be a clarity call where you can come and get some clarity. But that's going to be open to the public. I do coaching. I have group coaching, one-on-one coaching. You can be on Be the Wolf Live, which is an Instagram live series that I've been doing. So lots of ways to get involved, at whatever level you're at. Just reach out to me via social media, and that's Genea. It's a G, everybody, not a J. Genea Barnes on all the platforms. And yeah, so all those things are things that can help you move through that internal conflict, that conflict that's created from trauma, from, inconsistent parenting and generational trauma as well.
Hmm. Yeah.
Moving
Beautiful.
towards the peace and the freedom and the joy
Yeah.
and all that
Yeah.
stuff that
Yeah.
we've been striving for.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, Janaea, thank you so much for being here. I really loved this conversation. And for those that are watching, please like, share, and subscribe. Share this with people whom you think it would benefit. And check out Janaea on her socials. And yeah, until next time, thank you so much. Janaea, it's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, awesome.